What is the dumbest customer complaint you've ever heard? Used to work at Starbucks. A lady ordered a mocha, and I forgot to add the mocha syrup. Dumb mistake, so I fixed it, of course. She put it back on the bar a couple minutes later and said, "It doesn't taste right. I want a new one." Okay, I thought. Don't know what else I can do, but sure, I'll make a new one. I get started on it, and she goes to the restroom. She gets back from the restroom before I'm done making it, but sees her old drink on the bar that I hadn't taken back yet, and thinks it's her new one. She looks at and says, "Ah, it looks better already." Takes a big drink and says, "Now see, that's perfect." Then leaves before I can tell her I didn't do a damn thing. Story 2. I used to work at a lube oil change franchise, and we had some incredibly stupid people pull in. My favorite was the chick with the Volvo. So it was a slow day. We didn't have anything going on, and this woman pulls up in a fairly nice Volvo. She pulls up to a bay. We ask her what she wants, and she says an oil change. We get her info, take down the mileage, 50,467. I will never forget that number. And pull her car into the bay while my manager talks up the extra services. She gets over the pit. I pop the hood and open the oil cap. Black billowing smoke comes out. I call down to my pit guy, ask him to pop the oil pan. He starts coughing. Black billowing smoke comes up from the pit. I get my boss and tell him we've got a problem. He comes out, sees the smoke, and says, "Don't touch a damn thing." He walks back into the office, and I follow out of curiosity. He looks at the customer and says, "Ma'am, there seems to be a very serious issue with your car. You might want to get hold of whoever did your last oil change and get their info for a warranty claim. Who did your last oil change?" This lady looks him square in the eye and says, "Nobody. This is my first scheduled oil change." We both stare at her in shock. She'd gone over 50,000 miles without an oil change. My boss stares at her some more while slowly trying to explain that cars are supposed to be serviced every 3,000 miles. This lady starts screaming at him. Who the hell does he think he is? He's not a mechanic. He's his certified powertrain and electrical. He ruined the car. It even says so in the owner's manual that it's every 50,000. Well, now. So we ask her to get the manual. She does, looking all smug, like, now I've got these holes written all over her face. She whips it open, looks for the maintenance schedule, and finds the part we're all waiting for. She's not letting us look at it yet, and we can tell reality hit her, because her face falls a bit. Then, she has the nerve to tell us that we're wrong anyway. My boss looks at her and says, "Lady, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pop the cap back on and leave the factory filter on your car. We're going to top off your washer fluid, and we're not going to charge you anything. Then you can go down to the Volvo dealership and tell them what you did to their $55,000 paperweight. Have a nice day. Get out of my shop." The kicker is, we got a call from the dealership a couple of days later, and the service writer is laughing his ass off. Says this really giddy lady came in and complained that our shop had ruined her car. They took one look at it, figured out what happened, and said they were going to have to charge her for a crate engine. She complained to the service manager that they weren't going to cover it under warranty. Story 3. I used to work at Tim Hortons throughout university. We had a guy come in once very angry because we ducked up his coffee when he came through the drive-thru. Instead of sweetener, we added sugar. This wouldn't have been a huge issue to fix, and generally people are level-headed and realize that mistakes do happen. However, he was throwing a hissy fit, claiming he'd a diabetic and that spoonful of sugar would have surely hit him had he ingested more than one gulp of the coffee. Because he was freaking out like a rabid dog, my manager stepped in and offered him any other item on the menu for free, because he wouldn't accept just a redo of the coffee. But he decides he wants a dozen donuts. No problem. I pack up the dozen, hand it to him. He then proceeds to eat not one, not two, but 3 large sugar-fat glazed donuts in front of my eyeballs, even though he just claimed he was severely diabetic. Story 4. I had a woman yell at me, questioning why I had kicked her daughter out of the sex. I had to then explain to her I had caught her daughter having sex with her BF. She just won't have any of it. My daughter is a good Christian girl. At this point, the whole building is watching her, and my manager comes over and offers to let her watch the security footage of her daughter. Well, she wouldn't have any of that and just stormed off. Story 5. We had a sale on organic cabbage for 85 cents a pound. And a week later, a woman came in claiming we had our cabbage on sale for 25 cents a pound, but she had been charged 85 cents a pound. I told her it had been on sale for 85 cents a pound, but I would call the produce department to find out for sure. And sure enough, it had been on sale for 85 cents a pound, and now it was about $1.79 a pound. She wouldn't have it. She threw the biggest get fest ever. Even if I'm wrong, you should give me $1 back. The customer is always right. And I'm just like, what? My assistant manager overhears her yelling, since the entire store could hear her yelling, and decides to appease her by giving her $1 and a $10 gift card for her troubles. The assistant manager later tells me that no one should have a bad day over $1. You know, unless you're employed by the store, awarding bad behavior is ridiculous. I wish everyone would unite and not give in to the ridiculous demands given by terrible customers. Story 6. Was managing a restaurant years ago, and a woman came in getting that her 3 prime rib dinners she got takeout last night, with baked potatoes, etc., was disgusting and made her whole family sick. Hostess called me over. I verified what she said, then had to inform her that we have never sold prime rib or baked potatoes, and I was calling the police. Never seen someone run that fast in my life. Story 7. Working at a hardware store, overhear my manager and a little old lady's conversation an aisle over. Manager, can I help you, ma'am? Lady, I hope so. You're all out of my size of air filter. Manager, which size was that, ma'am? Lady, 10 to 20, manager. Let me see here. Manager looks around the shelf. Here you go. Hands the lady a 20 to 10 air filter. Lady, I said I need 10 to 20. Manager keeps quiet, takes back air filter, holds it out in front of him, rotates it 90 degrees, and hands it back to her with a crap-eating grin. Lady leaves in silence with the 20 to 10. Story 8. I used to be a mechanic lady calls in one day saying that she needs a new radiator. She has it in her car and is on the way to get it replaced. Apparently, the shop she trusts diagnosed it, but we were closer, and she really needed to get it done. She emphasized several times that she was in a rush. As in, I'm in a rush. I need you guys to get this done as fast as possible. I have so many important things to do, blah, 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 etc. How much is the labor going to cost me? My boss, the quick-thinking guy that he is, pulled up her info and told her that the radiator paid 2.5 hours, so it was going to be around $250 in labor. She said that was okay, and that she'd be out there in around 20 minutes. Now, usually we were a pretty busy shop, but that day we were deader than a nun's Friday night. So the two head techs flipped a coin to see who was going to get paid, and they and I all were going to pitch in anyways because we wanted to get this lady in and out and we were bored. So the lady pulls in. My manager and head tech go out to greet her, and she tosses the keys at them and says, "Get it done, ASAP." So the head tech pulls it in. In an awesome display of teamwork and skill, we take a still steaming radiator and replace it with the brand new one she had within an hour. So the head tech pulls the car around, and we go in with smiling faces to talk to her and thank her for our business and generally be proud of ourselves. Alas, this was not to be. The lady was pissed, super pissed, as in she was screaming at our manager about how we cheated her, we screwed her over, and we were going to get sued by her lawyer husband, etc. So he, of course, relayed to her that we were very slow and she expressed a need for urgency. We did our best and had 3 techs working on her car to get it out as fast as possible. He showed her the old radiator and reminded her that she watched us pull the old radiator out and put the new one in. She screamed that she wasn't paying any money because we had obviously cheated her on money because we did the job too fast. My manager, who is normally a very kind and understanding guy, Moore had experienced quite enough of this lady's attitude. He told her that she had 2 choices. 1, he could call the cops and tell them that she refused to pay for services rendered. 2, with a devilish smile on his face, or we could replace the radiator with the old one free of charge. She decided to take the second option. We were sitting just outside the waiting area, listening to her wail like a banshee. Our manager comes back out and says, "Hey, you guys want lunch? You know that Chinese place you guys like so much, but it takes forever for them to get you your food? Why don't you guys go there and eat in my treat?" He hands us a wad of money and tells us to go. After we left, this is according to him, but I believe him due to her evil glare whenever we came back. He went back in and informed her that all the techs went on their mandatory lunch break and wouldn't be back for an hour. After we came back, funny enough, it took us 2 hours to put that old leaky radiator back in. Story 9. Work at GameStop. I'm a huge gamer. I probably know more about any of these games than you, but I'd like to complain that you don't have any copies of Mario for the Xbox. Why can't you do your job and put the copies out here for us? Story 10. I used to work at Mikasa back when they had actual stores. I'm ringing up a customer. She uses her 20% off any one full-price item coupon that they mailed out when you're on the mailing list. The coupon value is important here. Next woman comes up with a $2 thing from clearance and demands that I give her a coupon to use. I try to diffuse with, "If you sign up for the mailing list, you'll get them pretty regularly." No, she wants that coupon and she wants it now for this item. I try to explain that I cannot rescan that coupon or pull it out of the drawer, and she can't use it on her purchase anyway since it's for a regular price item, not clearance. She loses it, starts yelling at me that she's going to get my ass fired. She'll have everyone in the store out of a job. She's going to have the whole operation shut down. Over 40 damn cents, just let that be known. This is happening because I'm denying her a whopping 40 cents off her $2 item. I try to explain that I can't give her the coupon. I can't. I don't have the power to. I'm just a cashier, though I was seriously tempted to just pay for the damn thing myself if it would make her leave. She is still damn losing it. Her friend is pretending she doesn't know her. My manager comes over and gives the lady the senior discount of 10%, knocking a whopping 20 cents off her massive purchase. She smiles smugly at me and goes, "See, I always win." "Okay, lady, get down with your bad self. You just accosted a minimum wage employee over 20 cents and look like a crazy ass to everyone in a crowded store. Yep, you're the winner here. Story 11. A woman bought a white shirt. She then spilled red soda onto the shirt. To fix the stain, she used a Tide-to-Go pen. She rubbed so hard it tore a hole in the fabric. Her husband tried to return it after they stained and tore the garment, claiming that it must have been a manufacturing problem. No, sir, that's not how it works. Story 12. I work at a rather large chain store that sells costume jewelry in Australia. A lady came in, said she wanted to exchange a necklace. Would have been about $30 value. Fine, no problem. She presented the necklace, and it wasn't from our store, but rather a rival store. That was calmly explained. She started to raise her voice and say that the staff were making fun of her, that she got it from here and she wanted to exchange it for a bag she saw last time. We don't sell bags, but our rival store does. That was also explained. She lost it. Went on a rant about our horrible service, insisting that the bag and necklace was from our store. We didn't refund her, and eventually she left, vowing never to return again. Fine by me. She came in a week later with a gift card head office had sent her. She didn't recognize me. I was in the store at the time, but wasn't serving her, and said to me, "Your store wouldn't give me a refund, so I called customer support and they gave me a $30 gift card. I'm just here to rub it in your faces," and laughed. I later found out that after going to Outstore, she pulled the same crap at another one of our stores who did refund her because they knew head office wouldn't stick up for us anyway. Story 13. The opening of Tropic Thunder had a bunch of fake commercials. Keep this in mind. One lady came out of the movie furious, wanting to talk to a manager, not knowing the problem, and not wishing to get yelled at. We quickly called one over and hid off in a corner where we could hear the conversation, like responsible employees. Somewhere along the line, we hear something about an offensive commercial for a product that you sell in your concession stand. The manager was a little confused and asked her the name of the product. Bust a Nut Bar. I can't believe you'd sponsor such filth to be sold. We all burst out laughing. Story 14. I once managed the front desk of a recreational center, and this one parent yelled at me for a class starting without their kid. They were 15 minutes late. I hate parents. Story 15. This isn't really a dumb complaint so much as a dumb expectation. But when I was really little, my mom and I ordered dessert at a restaurant. I wanted the chocolate mousse because I thought it would be an actual small chocolate mousse. When a little boring bowl of chocolate showed up, I was visibly disappointed. My mom didn't complain, of course, because kids are stupid and I had learned my lesson. But the waiter noticed my mousse-less despair, asked what was wrong, and then took the mousse back, poured it into tinfoil and shaped it into a little mousse head for me. Happy child. I'm sure he got a huge tip. Story 16. Worked in a sandwich, wing place, several years ago. Had a woman order hot wings for delivery. After they were delivered, she called raging that those hot wings made her baby cry. The manager politely offered to send her mild instead. Story 17. We ran out of medium-sized fountain drink cups at the place I work at, so we were giving out large ones instead for the price of a medium. A lady flipped out and demanded that she get the drink for free since it wasn't the size that she wanted. Story 18. I work in a burger joint. One particular evening, I had a table of college kids. Pretty standard for a Friday night. Anyways, I take their order. Very simple. Single no tomato, double with cheese, add pickle, large fry, few shakes. Lastly, a blonde girl orders one of our specialty burgers, the Portobello and Swiss. A while later, I get the food dropped off. And when I'm checking back on them, the blonde, visibly upset, is demanding a different sandwich. I ask if there's something wrong, and she tells me her burger has mushrooms on it. Story 19. I once worked at a grocery store and oftentimes at the customer service counter, which typically handles refunds, exchanges, complaints, and other odds and ends, like cigarettes and lottery. This man comes up with a block of cheese still in its package. I ask, how can I help him? Then, our conversation goes something like this. Customer, this is the wrong cheese. Me, all right, would you like to exchange it for another kind of cheese or would you prefer a refund? Customer, I don't want it. Me, okay, I'll put through the refund for you. I proceed to take the cheese, enter the refund into the computer, and hold out the money we owe him. Customer, what? Where's my cheese? I don't want a refund. Me, so you want your cheese back? Customer, yes. I proceed to ring the cheese back into the computer, put the money back in the till, and give him his cheese back. Customer, where's my money? Me, you said you wanted your cheese instead of a refund, so I rang it through again. Customer, but it's the wrong kind of cheese. Me, so you want to exchange it? Customer, no, I don't want to bother with it. I'm just telling you it's the wrong kind. Me, so what do you want me to do? This still perplexes me, but he ended up throwing a little hissy fit and took his wrong cheese home again. Story 20. I used to work security at a casino, and a man and woman came up to me and told me there was a man following them. I asked if they knew him, and they replied, "Yeah, he's the loan shark we borrowed $2,500 from 2 weeks ago." Needless to say, they were escorted safely to their car, then barred for a year. Story 21. I work in the frozen department of a grocery store, and one time a customer came up to me and asked me where the Uncrushable were, which we had recently moved an aisle over. I showed her where they were and told her we recently moved them, and she just flew off on a rant about how we, as a store, had for some reason decided to specifically target her, and we're moving around all of the things she comes in to buy, and she really doesn't appreciate turning her trip to buy Uncrushable into a goddamn scavenger hunt. Story 22. During my sophomore year of college, I worked at a Baskin-Robbins. While I worked there, I gained a little reputation as being the guy who gave double scoops for the price of one. Everyone loved it because, let's face it, Baskin-Robbins is a ripoff for the scoop size. Every Friday night around 7:30, wave after wave of parents accompanied by their loud, messy children would come in and order copious amounts of ice cream. After about a month of working the same shift, I began to recognize the regulars. One larger fellow with his family would come in and order the Banana Royale with just about everything on it. I mean everything! Nuts, gummy bears, caramel, peanut butter, various fruits, whatever we had. If we didn't have it out at the front, he would ask if I could check the back for whatever he wanted. Being the nice guy, I always checked, even if I knew that the store didn't have any. During one late Friday shift around 9 p.m., the larger fellow showed up with his family and ordered the usual, while him and his family ate quietly in the corner. A drunken woman entered the store and proceeded to shout that she was here. After announcing to the world that she had arrived, she continued to scan the 31 flavors. I swear she must have been out of her mind, because she took about 15 minutes to decide that she wanted strawberry cheesecake, a more popular flavor. Once she had finished ordering her ice cream, she asked if she could give me a tip. I directed her attention towards the small tip jar which had been filled throughout the shift. She looked at it for 20 seconds, and then she checked her wallet. After realizing that she didn't have any cash, she asked if we accepted tips through debit or credit. Unfortunately, the Baskin-Robbins I worked at had a policy to not accept tips through any means besides cash. This was because of previous workers stealing from the people using cards to tip. The woman in her drunken state attempted to convince me that our store policy allowed it. I politely stated that I was fine with not receiving a tip. Let me make it clear the room is filled with children and their parents. A brief moment of silence. It was as if she didn't comprehend what I had said. The woman then erupted with anger, saying that our store accepted tips through debit or credit. She then proceeded to scream, "Damn you, and I'm reporting this to your manager." For 2 minutes, she cursed me out, going through the entire list of vulgar words. I stood there listening to every word, attempting to calm her down, while the entire room was in silence. Some parents were beginning to approach the woman. At the third, "Damn you," I was done with being nice. In the deepest and harshest tone, which I reserve for the a-holes of the world, I bellowed, "Get the duck out!" She screamed, "What's your manager's number?" I ignored her request and continued to tell the idiot off. I went through everything that she did wrong, explaining that it was inappropriate behavior, especially in the presence of children. The whole room was silent. Even the woman was stunned. In a more calm and collected tone, I said, "Get out." She collected her things, walked to the door, turned around and screamed, "Damn you," one last time as loud as she could. Once she left, all the parents thanked me for halting the verbal diarrhea that had assaulted everyone's ears. As I began to start closing the store, the larger fellow I spoke of earlier approached the counter and put an extra $2 in the tip jar. Then proceeded to say that I had done good. It was single-handedly the proudest moment I've ever had while working at a minimum wage job. Story 23. I used to work in a music and DVD store in the mall, and we had a tiny employee-only bathroom in the back office. It wasn't available to the public, but every once in a while you'll get someone doing the pee dance that can't make it to the public restroom 200 feet away. There was a woman that came in and used the restroom, then demanded a discount on her DVDs because, and I quote, "The soap in your bathroom made my hands smell like flowers. I hate when my hands smell like flowers." You need to offer a citrus soap option to your customers. I tried explaining that it wasn't a public restroom. We can choose whatever soap we'd like, and that none of this had any bearing on her DVD purchase. She didn't care. After a half hour of this nonsense, my manager just gave her a 10% discount to get her out of the store for a whopping savings of $3.50. I absolutely despise dealing with customers in retail around the holidays. This lady was ridiculous, but if you ask other holiday retail employees, I'm sure this is mild in comparison. Story 24. While at Starbucks, lady ordered a venti caramel macchiato extra caramel and heated to 180 degrees. Long story short, she eventually came in with her own thermometer and showed us that her drink wasn't at its optimal temperature. BTW, the thermometer read 175. Story 25. Server here. I could write a book. 1. Someone once told my friend her popcorn shrimp tasted too much like shrimp. 2. A woman asked me to take back her son's kid-sized quesadilla so our chef could cut it into bite-sized pieces, because most parents don't, do that themselves. 3. My favorite was when a man sent back his salad 2 milliseconds after I set it in front of him because he wasn't expecting it to look like that. Our guests make me want to Hulk smash sometimes. Story 26. A few years ago, the community center had a community garage sale, so for $10 you get a table to sell whatever you want. I paid for the table so my 6-year-old son could get rid of a lot of his old toys and keep the cash. Win-win. He had a ton of McDonald's toys, the freebie and the kids' meals, and he started selling them for 50 cents each. As the afternoon wore on, and good ones were all gone, he lowered the price to 20 cents. Some lady who came by 2 hours earlier and bought 2 toys wanted a refund now so she could pay the lower price. I told her all the money was going to the kid, and he was trying to get rid of the last few nobody wanted. So she, of course, starts yelling, etc. My son says, "Dad, I'll just give her the toys for free." "Yep, lady, you won. Got a pair of free McDonald's toys from a 6-year-old by being a Class A asshat." Story 27. I imagine this will be unpopular, but I work at a bank and hear this all the time. My interest rate is too high, so I'm just going to not pay back the $30,000 I borrowed. Listen, idiot, you opened the credit card, you signed the disclosure with the agreed-upon interest rate. You decided to spend $30,000 on a bunch of useless crap, and I know it's useless crap because I can see what you damn spent it on. How anyone can feel justified in violating a contract and not paying back many $1,000s because someone is doing exactly what they agreed to do in a contract that you damn signed is beyond me. I don't care if it's a bank, credit union, friend, relative. If you borrow money, pay it the crap back. And I'm not talking about an increased rate. I work at a bank that actually does not raise your APR if you fall past due. Story 28. I work in a call center for a TV provider, and one supervisor call I had to take was a lady complaining because it took a second for the channel to change, causing a problem when her child would walk in on her watching adult film on demand. Story 29. Had a woman come into our restaurant absolutely fuming and demanding a refund. Why? Because she couldn't understand why a large meal costs more than a medium? Story 30. Was a slow day. Standing behind the counter when some dude in his 30s dressed like a 15-year-old backup dancer from Bet hobbled up to the counter exposing all 2 of his boxers, looked me dead in the eyes and asked with a slurred and imposing tone, "Y'all take food stamps?" When I told him no, he told me I was a dumb idiot. I work in an arcade. Story 31. While working in retail, a woman who had come in the day before was furious that we had not bagged one of the items she had paid for. She claimed to have paid for 4 sets of boxers, but only 3 were in the bag. We looked up her receipt on our register and saw that we only charged her for 3. We even looked back at the security tape to see that she had only brought 3 to the register. After giving her a callback saying that she had only purchased and paid for 3, she blew up. Racial slurs, profanity, and threats were made about how we were scamming her. In 20 minutes, she came to the store with her receipt to prove that she paid for 4. We counted 1, 2, and 3. Instead of accepting the facts, she ripped up the receipt and said that she paid for 4. She started knocking down clothes on the racks on her way out and demanded her set of boxers. The owner just gave it to her and told her not to come back. Story 32. I worked at a local ice cream store in high school, and we always had some pretentious customers. On summer afternoon, a lady came up to me and showed me that her ice cream had melted and wanted another one free of charge. I gave her another cone, but this time I made it sugar-free. Idiot had it coming. Story 33. This guy came up just yesterday and complained that he had ordered extra butter on his popcorn, but when he dumped it out, he got it all over his wife. He said, "I asked for extra butter, but there was too much butter." I failed to see the logic in the situation. He asked for extra butter and got it. Then he knowingly dumped out the bucket onto the floor and spilled out the extra butter. I had no idea what he wanted from me, because all he was doing was complaining about how the concessionism had done exactly what he wanted, then complained about his own stupidity. Story 34. If ever I gain access to a time machine, the first thing I will do is go back, find the guy who coined "the customer is always right," bring him back to read this, then beat him for his crimes against humanity. Story 35. A woman wanted me fired from my job because she thought I photos hoped extra freckles onto the model in her picture. Why the duck would I do that? She said I did it to deliberately piss her off when she was going through a family crisis. What the heck? I had never met her before. So my manager told her that he was sorry she was having a bad day, but to get the duck out of his store. Story 36. I had a woman swear at and yell at me because she wasn't allowed to wear her giant cowboy hat on our water slides. Then she tried to tell me the rules. Idiot, I work here. I know the rules better than you know your own ass from a hole in the ground. She requested to speak to my supervisor, and he laughed in her face when she tried to tell him that I was inconveniencing her. I'm a lifeguard. I have to maintain safety. Loose articles are not safe. Story 37. I was working in a restaurant a few years ago. It was pretty late after closing, and I was waiting for the last table to finish eating so I could clean up, not my table. In the meantime, I was doing some other closing work on the other side of the restaurant, talking to a coworker and glancing occasionally over my shoulder to see if they had left yet. The lady at the table comes up to me, demanding to see the manager. I say, okay, not really grasping how angry she is, and go get him. She begins to rant about how my coworker and I were laughing about how she and her friends were dogs. In actual fact, my coworker and I were talking about how he was looking after another coworker's pets while they were out of town. In the empty restaurant, they had overheard a few random words and pieced together their own little puzzle that my coworker and I had nothing better to do than talk crap about them. Says volumes about their self-image, I suppose. She unloads on our manager, who doesn't believe for a second that my coworker and I would even think, much less say anything like that about these women. Knowing there has obviously been some misunderstanding, he calls us over, and I proceed to explain how we were having a conversation about a coworker's pets. I swear I saw a look of embarrassment flash over her eyes, but she just continued flipping out. My coworker and I left the scene so the manager could cool her down, but after calling us rude names for the better part of 5 minutes, she eventually just walked out without paying. Her friends followed her out a minute or two later, saying they aren't paying for her meal, but that we'll probably just force it through on one of their credit cards anyways. More embarrassing for her than out-and-out dumb, I suppose. But as far as unnecessary customer complaints go, that one was pretty over the top. Story 38. I worked at an artisan pizza joint for a few years. I believe it was designed so that people with dietary restrictions could enjoy pizza too. We had this one woman that would call almost every other Friday for a delivery. This woman would make it incessantly clear to me that she had both dairy and garlic allergies, as well as an aversion to several vegetables every other Friday. So every other Friday, she would order a large no cheese, no sauce, pepperoni pizza, just crust and pepperoni. Then she would call me 20 minutes after the driver dropped off the pizza to complain. Apparently, a crust and pepperoni only pizza is too bland. She couldn't understand why we could never do a little something extra because she was a repeat customer. I've inquired several times and I still don't know what that means. She pulled this crap to the point that my manager could no longer offer her any more apology discounts. I would just apologize and say something like, "We will try better next time." I quit that job more than a year ago and still don't know why we put up with her. If it's any consolation, my driver, Raul, said she had nice tatas. Story 39. I used to work in the electronics department at Target, and one thing that always pissed me off was when a TV a customer wanted wasn't in stock. I would typically do my best by initially checking the PDA for stock, and if that wasn't enough, I would go to a visual check to confirm that the TV was out of stock. Then after all that effort, the guest would get mad at me and tell me this exact phrase. "Well, if you don't have this TV, why the hell do you even have it up on the wall? That's false advertising. You have to sell that one to me." I would say we couldn't sell the displays. They would get mad. I would get mad. Then I would usually take a long crap afterwards. Damn Target. Story 40. I work at customer service at a home improvement store. A few months ago, a customer brought in a crap-smeared toilet seat. He claimed that he had purchased it this way, but didn't discover the Hershey stains until he had guests visit a week after the transaction. He claimed it was egregious that we would sell disgusting merchandise, and that we owed him money and an apology. In diplomatic customer service fashion, we explained to him that we could not return it due to the health hazards associated with it. He proceeded to shout at everyone at the return desk and the manager that had walked over after seeing the commotion. He then demanded that we throw the toilet seat away for him. We explained that we could not do that for him since it was crafty and a health hazard. We also explained to him that he needed to throw it away himself. He stormed out of the building yelling obscenities. A few minutes later, the store janitor came to customer service informing us that there was a toilet seat on the trash can outside. Our trash cans sit outside of the main entrances, exits, and have ashtrays on the top of them. The disgruntled customer had laid the toilet seat so that the ashtray was in the center of the seat, exposing the crap stains to entering customers, and the lid resting against the building. The coup de grace was that the customer left a note on the seat which read, "If it looks like crap, they won't take it back." Story 41. I am a waiter. Last Sunday, we had a kid who wanted a straw in her drink. Perfectly fine, right? So my coworker puts a straw in her bottle of soda. Then she insists that we put the straw in her glass, while she could have just lifted up the straw out of the bottle and put it in her glass. She demands from us that we do it. Spoilt brats these days. Story 42. I used to deliver for a pizza place. I took an order to the scummiest trailer park I've ever seen. I get to the lot, and naturally it's two very obese redneck women. I tell them their total, and they start flipping out. "What? We done already paid with the credit card. We called up there and gave the card number and everything." I tell her that there was no credit card placed on this order. Perhaps it didn't go through. "Just hold on 1 second for me, and I can call the store and give them your credit card info. I guarantee you won't be charged twice." I asked if they remembered who they spoke to. It was some girl. I walk back to my car to get their ticket while they mumble obscenities. Bunch of damn gets up at that place. What the heck? Y'all are so damn stupid. I retrieve the ticket and look up in the top corner where it says who took the order. Sure enough, right there in bold letters was the word internet, meaning these awful women ordered online and never spoke to anyone at the store, and definitely did not give us their card number. I interrupt them in the midst of calling me and all my coworkers idiots with, "Ma'am, it says right here you placed this order online. They both quickly shut up and sulked inside to retrieve the card. A lot of crafty things happened at that place, but for some reason that pissed me off the most. Story 43. I was working the night shift at my dad's diner because the busboy got hit by a car. Towards the end of my shift, an older lady complained that my smile was creeping her out, made me call the manager, my dad, and demanded a different busboy, forcing him to clean the table. It was only me, him, and Sean, the waiter. That was by far the strangest complaint I ever received. Story 44. While working at the world's largest fruit company, I was assisting another customer at the Brilliant Saloon when I heard a rather angry customer yelling at someone delivering some bad news. I finished up and decided to go help her out and inquired about her problem. She said she was told she was going to have to pay a very large amount of money to repair her laptop due to liquid damage. But it wasn't her fault, and she didn't think she should have to pay for the repair. I was intrigued, so I inquired whose fault it was. Dumb question. It's always the fruit company's fault. And she immediately blamed the design of the laptop. Explaining that her ports are always open and her bunny likes them a little too much, he made a mess inside one. I immediately assumed the bunny peed inside the laptop. So I began to explain that while unfortunate, the bunny peed inside the Ethernet port when she stopped me. "He didn't pee inside the port," she said indignantly. "He had his way with it." I bit my lip just shy of really hurting myself to stop from blasting out loud with laughter. She went on to complain that if the ports were covered, this never would have happened, and that is all our fault, demanding that we charge her nothing to fix the laptop. I somewhat calmly explained why ports are accessible, and that she will still be responsible for the cost regardless. That's when she asked for a manager. I very quickly ran to the back room to laugh and inform my manager of the situation. Needless to say, she said the cost stands, and the lady took her love book away with her. Story 45. Worked at a pizza place. Obviously, stoned out guy calls in to complain about pizza burn from pizza because, it was actually still super fresh and hot when it got to him. My long-haired, tattooed Fu Manchu mustache wearing manager spent like 15 minutes on the phone with him explaining how the pizza gets baked in a 600-degree oven, gets to you fresh, blah, blah, blah. I was dying listening to it. Story 46. I'm working at Taco Bell during the Sunday after church rush, and we have a line so long people are waiting outside the store. A family of 3 make it to the counter, despite the fact that they had plenty of time to look at the menu board. The parents didn't know what kid's meal to get their 3-year-old. Their options were a hard shell, soft shell, or bean burrito. They kept changing their mind after I rang it up. I can tell my manager is getting annoyed as she's working the hot table and knows we have a mass of people waiting. I tell the family, if you don't know what to order, please step to the side and let me know when you have decided. I can't have you holding up the line. That set off a crap storm. Father, dressed in his Sunday best, started tearing me a new one in front of the entire crowd. He started calling me a low-life degenerate, a college dropout who probably can't make change, etc., 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 and he wasn't saying this quietly. I proceeded to wipe his order and start helping the next customer, because screw him. Once his order was wiped, he knocked over our cup display and shouted, "Now listen here, you piece of crap." My manager walked from the line at that point and told him to get out of the store, or she was calling the cops. He said, "Oh yeah, what are the cops going to do?" The best moment of working fast food was my manager turning to the choral and saying, "Show of hands, who here just witnessed this guy verbally assaulting my employee?" Every single customer raised their hand. My manager then told him to get out and not to come back. He tried to come through the drive-thru about 30 minutes later. He ordered the same combos and a kid's meal. He got to the window and there stood my manager. "Not going to happen. Keep driving, jackass." My manager was awesome. Story 47. When I began working in a grocery store, a woman complained to my manager because I did not know where she could find horse meat. I was not even working in the meat department. Story 48. I worked at Dunkin' Donuts for a year, and I have way too many crafty customer stories to choose just one for this. I'm now a manager at a local restaurant, cafe, and though it is a much more refined environment than a fast food chain, I still get the stuck-up people once in a while. I'll share a story that happened just a few weeks ago. It was a pretty busy night, especially for pizzas. It was clear to customers ordering at the counter that we had our hands full. 2 women came in with 2 kids, a young boy and girl. They ordered 2 specialty pizzas, and only those 2 pizzas. They said they would be dining in, and the kids were commenting about how hungry they were. I told them it would be just a bit of a wait, but that we would bring the pizzas out as soon as they were ready. The women sat within eyesight of our pizza maker and the oven. They could see the cooks and the pizzas coming in and out of the oven. Again, it was a pretty hectic night, and it wasn't hard to overlook something and make a small mistake. Our pizza maker misread the ticket for their order and thought it was to go, so he had 2 pizza boxes open and ready to put them in. I saw him doing it, but didn't know it was for their order. Otherwise, I would have said, "Hey, those are for here." He took them out of the oven, slid them each into a box, and put them on top of the oven. Within 30 seconds of this happening, one of the women approached the counter and got the pizza guy's attention and inquired about the ticket number, asking if they had been their pizzas. He checked and saw that it was their order for here and sincerely apologized, saying he would bring them right out. The woman said, "Okay, that's fine," and sat back down. He got out 2 stands and trays and put the pizzas on them, still piping hot and delicious and melty. Even my mouth was watering. Another server and I carried both pizzas out and set them on their table, and the kids were so excited that the food was there and they were reaching out for it. One of the ladies pushed their hands back and told them to wait, and I watched her sit there and damn poke the pizza with her fingers. I asked if everything was okay, and she said in the jittiest tone, yeah, we're not going to eat these." I asked why, and she said, "Because they're going to taste like box now." I couldn't believe it. I asked her to clarify what was wrong because I couldn't really comprehend that she was actually saying this. And she said that the pizzas were both going to taste like cardboard because they had been in a box for not even 30 seconds. She didn't even bother to taste it. The kids started crying and asking her to keep them, but she demanded that I take them back and remake them. I had to grit my teeth and bring them back. And they made those kids wait another 20 minutes for them because by that time there were even more pizza orders our pizza guy had to get to. I couldn't believe how snooty they were. Hundreds of pizzas are made to go daily and picked up in boxes and enjoyed at home. How could you possibly believe being in one for not even a minute destroys it? Story 49. I work in the service deli at Vons. When you buy fried chicken by the piece, it costs a lot more than if you were to buy the full 8-piece. So this guy came in today and was like, "I'll take 4 fried breasts." Well, breasts are $2.29 a piece, so it would come out to be over $9 plus tax. So I proceed to tell him, "Well, sir, I'll just go ahead and give you the 4 breasts, but I'll add 2 legs and 2 wings to make it an 8-piece, $6.99, so you can save a few bucks and get more chicken." He then looks at me like I'm a damn idiot and says, "I don't want that much, damn this, I'm going to KFC," and storms off. Every day, every goddamn day, people like this come in and make no damn sense and get pissed for no reason. Story 50. I used to work in a cafe and had a customer order a croissant and an Americano. She wanted the croissant toasted, so I put it in the oven while I made her drink. I handed both of them off to her. And she came back moments later and threw the drink and the croissant at me and said the croissant was too crusty and the drink was nothing more than water and coffee. I just laughed and walked away as she complained to my manager about how gross she thought her order was, only to be told that's how those products are. Idiots, man. Know what you're ordering or ask questions. We're all trained to know what these items are, and I'd rather explain what something is than have to have an angry customer. Story 51. This woman calls really angry that we didn't call her to let her know we didn't receive her fax. I had to try and explain that there was no way we would know if she was attempting to send us a fax unless we actually got the fax. Story 52. Had a woman phone up in the office I work in, which is above a grocery store, to complain that she cut into her orange, and as she did, juice fell out. So she wanted a replacement. Story 53. I worked at an Italian restaurant, and we sprinkled the edges of our dishes with a dried herb. Parsley, maybe. I don't really remember. We had one group of customers send an entire table of food back because the plates were dirty, and wouldn't believe us when we said the parsley was there on purpose. Story 54. I worked in a liquor store that was right next to a retirement home as a cashier. The owner stocked some basic groceries to be nice to them. He obviously made very little from the sales of eggs and bread. On a regular basis, the tenants of the retirement home would complain that the grocery selection was terrible. It was a liquor store. What did they expect? Story 55. I used to work at Staples. Customer called and complained the disk drive in their new laptop wasn't reading any disks. I asked a few questions over the phone like, "Is the disk upside down? And does the disk work in other computers?" She yells back at me. "I think I know what I'm doing. I'm not an idiot. I want this fixed." So I tell her to come in. We can replace it since it's under the 14-day return policy. Mind you, I'm pissed off since I tried to be helpful over the phone and she yells at me. So she comes into the store and puts the laptop on the counter saying it doesn't work. I asked, "Can you just show me what you're doing so I can make sure?" She turns on the laptop, opens the disk tray, puts the CD on top. She doesn't even snap it into the damn tray. Just lays it flat on top and says, "See, it doesn't work. I want a new one." I snap it into the tray, close it, and tell her your laptop is fine, and walked away. My coworker, standing next to me, had to finish it up. I was so dumbstruck. Story 56. When I was a cashier for my dad's business, a lady was trying to cut in front of a line of about 8 people. I asked if she was in line, and she said, "No, I'm just moving my items around." I told her, "Whenever you're ready, just move over there," and pointed at the end of the line. She finagled in her cart for another 2 minutes and then came up to me and said, "I'm ready." I said, "I'm sorry, miss, but these people are in line." She then goes off about how she's been waiting for 20 minutes and demands to see my manager. I look over and just said, "Hey, Dad, this woman wants to speak to you." My dad just said, "You're right, but don't worry about it. If you get to the back of the line, you'll be out of here within a couple minutes." As she starts walking to the back of the line, he quips, "Just like they taught you in kindergarten." Story 57. A woman comes through the drive-through lane and orders stuff. One of the things is a large Diet Coke. She pulls around to the window, and I look over to see she is driving a full-size van with a live miniature horse in the back. I hand her the Diet Coke, and she gives it to the horse. I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. I turn away to make sure her order is ready. I turn back around and she is livid. I ask her what's wrong, and she screams at me and throws a broken Coke cup at me. She tells me off, ranting about how crappy our cups were. Apparently, the horse broke the cup and it spilled everywhere. I'm like, really? You gave it to a damn horse? What did you think was going to happen? The cup even had dirt and hay on it when I got it back. Just one of the many ducked-up people I've seen during my time as a fast food employee. Story 58. I used to work for Sears, and a coworker told me this story. He sold a top-loading washer to gentlemen in a 5-year service agreement. The service agreement covered most things except customer negligence. He came back into the store about a week later, absolutely livid. He was complaining that the washer wasn't working correctly, it was all off-balanced, and the drum was ruined. So a service call was scheduled for the technicians to figure out what the problem was. A few days later, when the technicians went out to his house, they were shocked at what they found. Now, this is according to the technicians, as none of us were there, but the drum was cracked, and the machine itself barely ran. Apparently, it in no way resembled a brand new washer. The technicians refused to do any type of repairs or order new parts for free, which is part of the service agreement, citing evidence of customer abuse. So the next day, the man returns to the store even more mad than he was before. During a long argument between the man, my coworker, and department manager, the man revealed that the first thing he did with the washer was wash a bowling ball. Apparently, he did not realize that would be bad for the machine. His service agreement, of course, was void after such a blatant display of negligence. And of course, he did the customary vow to never shop at our store again. Story 59. And while I've had a couple that were borderline, I wouldn't accept a fake $20, customer said my attitude was bad, etc., the one that takes the cake for me is as follows. I worked a 9.5-hour shift on a very busy overnight at the convenience store. 7 a.m. finally arrives. I clock out, grab my keys, and head to my car across the parking lot. I still have my name tag on. An older woman comes up to me and asks me if I'd like to go to church with her. I politely decline and tell her my wife was waiting for me at home. She then asks what church I go to, which is not an altogether uncommon question in the South. I tell her that I prefer not to give out information about my life outside of work, even to my coworkers. I then said goodbye and thanked her for her offer. Takes me a bit to get out of customer service mode, which is a bit irritating, and went home. 3 weeks later, at my one-on-one meeting with my manager, he tells me that someone complained to corporate about me, asked if I remembered a customer inviting me to church, and handed me the complaint, which I still have hanging on my fridge. Dear company, I want to express my concern regarding one of your employees. He works Saturday overnight at location, and his name tag said, Guard Ian off Rhea, on August 26th as he was leaving. I met him in the parking lot and invited him to come with me to church. While he was polite enough, he declined, and then refused to answer me when I asked him which church he attended. It is clear to me that he is an atheist, and I must ask that he be fired. It is a terrible thing to be giving non-believers jobs when there are plenty of good Christian folk who do not have them. Thank you for your time, name redacted. I looked up from reading it, and even my manager was shaking his head at it. The response from my company was something along the lines of offering her a gift card, apologizing for the inconvenience, and dancing around the issue that they could not fire me for not going to church with a customer. My manager's response, good job at being called polite in a complaint, and remember not to do that thing again. What thing? I have no idea. Still the most ludicrous complaint I've ever received. Story 60. I work at a phone store, and just yesterday, a customer came and pissed off about crappy service one of our other locations gave her. Because the other location was apparently so busy and made her wait, they generously gave her a $25 gift card, or a second chance card. So she's in my store returning a phone she didn't like for a different phone, and the total comes to $0. Then she says, and I want to use this gift card too. Me. The total is $0, so there's nothing to use it for. Her. Well then, why the heck did you guys give me this? Me. Well, it never expires, and you can use it for anything we sell to get it for free. Her. But I can't use it today, see? There's always a catch with you guys. Me. Well, no, it's not a catch. It's just, we gave you money to spend on something that costs money. This does not. I can take it back if you don't want it. Her. No, whatever, I will keep it. What the heck? Story 61. I worked at a bank. After flipping out about a new maintenance fee that the bank hadn't even started charging yet and cutting off our assistant manager each time, he tried to describe ways to waive the fee or alternate accounts she can move into. This woman passionately declares, and I will be blogging about this. Story 62. I was selling muffins at my job, and this guy asked for our last cranberry muffin to be grilled and wrapped up to go. When I got it back from the kitchen, all grilled and buttery and awesome, he tried one bite of the corner and said it was too dry. I just kind of stood there for a second thinking, yeah, You had it grilled? But trying to be a good worker, I let him know if he tried the center, it was still very moist. He refused, called me rude, and told me to fix it. So I did what seemed logical and hit it with the steamer. I know that's not what you're supposed to do, but it was the middle of the Sunday brunch rush. I was tired and stressed. He saw this, grabbed a piece of paper, crumpled it, and threw it at my head while yelling at me that I'm retarded and incompetent. I politely asked if there was anything else I could help him with, at which point he demanded I personally paid for his $50 meal. I couldn't help but laugh a little, at which point he called me a git, grabbed the rest of his muffin, threw at the wall, and stormed out. I had a sip of my coffee and went back to work. Story 63. I sometimes try to help nurses at my hospital with their computer troubles. I had a nurse come to me extremely upset and unwilling to even let me try to fix her problem because I probably wouldn't get it anyway. I have a 4-year degree in information services technology and made a later-in-life decision to get into healthcare, but suffice to say, at least compared to the national average, I know my crap when it comes to PC troubleshooting. Her problem was that she, in her own words, has a tendency when stressed out to rest her thumb on the space bar and not notice. This causes obvious problems for her as she needs to type out patient status updates, emails, etc. And they all have huge blank spaces in them where she just inserted 20 seconds of spacebar presses. This, to her, is the computer's fault because, again, her words, it should be advanced enough to know that I don't want all of those spaces in there. Who would want those? 20 minutes later, I finally convinced her that there's no way for the computer to know if she really wants all of the spaces or not, because it relies on the user to enter spaces if they want spaces, and not enter spaces if they don't want spaces. She still thinks it's the computer's fault, and is now resolved to work around the computer's problem, even if it causes delays for her. How brave. Story 64. I used to work as a bank teller. People who poorly manage their money were always coming into the branch to have fees reversed. You know the type of person, someone who never takes accountability for anything. Everything that happens to them is someone else's fault. Anyway, one guy in particular was always overdrafting his account. He always had some story of how he was wronged and that the overdraft wasn't his fault. One day he came in wanting to have 10 overdraft fees reversed. All the transactions were for online poker websites. He said, "None of those transactions are mine. This is fraud. I don't even gamble online." I said, "Sir, you are wearing a PokerStars t-shirt." Story 65. I work at Target. I have been there for about 3 years and am considered a very reliable and integral part of my team. The other night, I received my first ever complaint from a guest to the manager for reasons I am not sure of. Basically, I was training a new team member, and we were going through and straightening the baby aisle. A guest asks me if I work there. Me: "Yes. Can I help you find something?" Guest: "Does this baby swing vibrate?" Me: Well, I'm not sure about the product details, but the box might say if it does." "Let me see." I read the box. Me: "No, I don't think this one does. I don't see anything saying anything about vibration." Guest: "Okay, do you have this one in stock? I don't see it out." Points to baby swing next to non-vibrating one. Me: "Let me run and grab my PDA and I can see if we have it in the back." Get PDA, return to guest, scan display barcode, says we have one on the floor. Me: "It says we have one out. Let me check around and see if it's in the wrong spot." Looks around, finds item Me. "Here it is. This is the one." Guest: Silence on phone, pays no attention. Me: "Do you want me to go ahead and put it in the cart?" Guest: Playing on phone. "No, I need to see if the other one vibrates." Me: "Well, I don't think that one does, but I'll go ahead and set this one here for you when you're ready." A guest: Silence me. "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Guest: "No, you've done enough." So I left and continued training the team member. I was pulled aside by the manager later, who told me the guest said she was so disappointed with my guest service and that I wasn't very helpful and didn't seem like I wanted to help. What? Story 66. Guy comes into the story at Ace True Value. I didn't work there, was just shopping. The guy's shouting about the fact that somebody hit his truck in the parking lot and he wants the store to pay for it because it was their screwed up parking spaces that resulted in the damage. Manager is being called every name in the book, and the guy is pissed that the manager insists on seeing the damage first. Keeps stopping the manager over and over, intentionally stepping in front of him to impede his forward progress. He even goes so far as to grab the manager's sleeve and turn him around. The manager is my hero. Tells the guy he isn't allowed to dance during store hours. Every time the guy cusses him out, the manager just dips his head and thanks him for pointing out areas he should work on, or compliments his creativity and language use. The guy is redneck, slightly drunk, and stupid. He keeps getting pissed off that the manager insists on seeing the damage before he will okay a payout or not. I follow them out, really curious about what is going on. Also, I wanted to help out if the a-hole tried to start something. The manager wasn't a friend, but he was someone I enjoyed interacting with when I came in the store. We get outside and the manager takes one look at the man's truck and tells him the store isn't responsible and won't be paying to have the damage fixed. The guy parked in the middle of the drive where cars are supposed to drive. He basically choked the entrance from the street in half parking where he had. Evidently, the guy who hit him never stopped and took off. Customer starts threatening the manager, telling him he's going to kick his ass and duck him up, and the manager just chuckles and says that he probably needs one, and continues to thank him for his advice and suggestions, which only infuriates the man worse. He eventually leaves, pissed off. I couldn't have kept my cool the way that manager did. My new hero. Story 67. I work at a bar, Pizza Bistro, as a busboy. I always try to smile and say hi to customers, even though I'm not expected to. It makes it easier when I go to take their plates. So a couple of days ago, we had about 15 bikers come in and more or less fill up the bar. They actually turned out to be really nice guys, but they looked terrifying. The bar is right across from a section of booths, and there was a family eating dinner across from the main group of bikers. The parents were the typical snobby white a-holes, who by this point had complained that the balls of pizza dough I brought for their kids to play with weren't big enough, and that the water didn't taste filtered enough, even though they had declined bottled spring water and requested regular tap water. So, one of the bikers was wearing a shirt that had the slogan, 2 in the pink, 1 in the stink on the back, and the parents were giving it the evil eye for a good 15 minutes before I happened to walk past them again. The father immediately pulls me aside and says something along the lines of, "That shirt is really inappropriate and we don't want our kids exposed to it." So I offered to let them switch to a different booth. Problem solved, right? Nope. No, we like this booth. Go have him change his shirt. Really? Really, sir? He was dead serious. He wanted me to go ask a huge, muscular, bearded, tatted-up biker who had been drinking pretty heavily for a good hour to change his shirt in the middle of the restaurant. They glared at me until I did it, so I basically went up to the biker and explained the situation. He stared at me for a moment, and I was like, "I'm going to die." Then he smiled at me and said, "No problem. I'll be right back." He went outside and came back a few minutes later, wearing a leather jacket that obviously covered it up. To make the situation even better, when the bikers left, he stopped at their table and said, in a genuinely polite tone, "You guys have a great evening, and sir, have a happy Father's Day." The dad went apcrap and demanded I kick the guy out. Story 68. At a used bookstore, I was in charge of the donations for a local children's hospital. People could bring in all kinds of kids' books for the library at the hospital, but we asked that they be new or in perfect or like new condition. They couldn't have any writing inside or stickers or anything like that. I had to go through all the crap people dropped off, and it was usually stuff their kids had drawn all over, had ripped pages, or smelled like cat pee, which I didn't understand. It doesn't seem very charitable. Anyway, there was this one guy who used to come in all the time and just browse for hours, never really spent any money. He brings a stack of children's books to our buy counter one day, and all of them have stickers on the front that say, "Donated from the library of his name." I get called up to explain to the guy that not only can we not accept his donations, because he's put big stickers right on the front with his name, but he also isn't going to get to write this off on his taxes, because he also wanted us to make him up a receipt for charitable donations. He starts to get more and more angry as I explain that our bookstore isn't like an organization, that the library service we do is really just for sick kids at the hospital to have something to read. And his donation is kind of offensive because the children don't need to be reminded that they're being given charity. He ended up literally spitting mad, like red-faced, spit flying out of his mouth while he fumed and screamed at us for screwing him around, as well as his elderly, wealthy mother, who he claimed spent tons of money at our store and would no longer be coming in. Story 69. Sold a set of factory Ford floor mats on eBay. Worked for a company that liquidated Ford parts. Buyer sends us a psychotic, ranting email that we're all a holes for not including the instructions for a damn set of floor mats. Story 70. I work at a home store in a mall. I had this customer come in and drag me towards the coffee makers and ask my opinion on a couple brands. After the discussion, she proceeds to ask if one of them made coffee. Since I thought it was a joke, I said, "No, ma'am, it only makes tea." She flipped her crap. "I asked you to show me the machines that make coffee, not tea. I demand to speak with your manager, you dumb brat." Manager laughed and told her to go to Tim Hortons. Story 71. An old woman came up to me, absolutely livid, complaining that her bag of frozen peas was in English and Spanish. She then made a few old lady racist comments and left without the peas she had paid for. Story 72. I was 16, working at Burger King. There was this lady who was obviously already pissy when she came in. She wanted just the Whopper, but since I was new and trying to rush, I rang her up for a Whopper meal only without the fries and drink. By the way, at the time, ringing it up that way was $1.19 cheaper for her. Anyway, she got really mad and started yelling about how she didn't want a meal, to which I replied, "Yes, ma'am, just the sandwich." And she went off about how I rang her up wrong and it says Whopper meal on the receipt. "That's my mistake, ma'am, but you're only getting the sandwich," I said, trying to calm her down. Needless to say, it didn't work. She went off on me saying, I'm worthless, stupid, and destined to work in fast food because I can't do anything right. Yada yada. Lucky for me, words have never hurt me. When I explained to her that it was an honest mistake that actually costs less than what she actually wanted, she took it as if I was saying she's cheap and can't afford a simple Whopper. She demanded to see my manager. He came out and tried to calm her down and explained to her that he's okay with accidentally charging her for a less expensive Whopper and give her a free side. Does she want pie or fries? As my manager was trying to calm her down, he was hardly able to contain laughter and was just unable to understand why this lady was so angry about a cheaper Whopper. She was only getting worse and worse and ended up storming out saying she'll never come back to this store again. My manager yelled after her, "Good." Then we got a standing ovation from the people standing in line. Story 73. Brought out chicken parmesan to a lady at the restaurant I work at. The lady takes a bite and asks if it's really chicken in the chicken parmesan. I say, of course it is. She immediately breaks down crying because she's a vegetarian and asks to see a manager. Story 74. I work at the Home Depot as a cashier. Last summer, a customer walks in with a moderate-sized dog on a leash. Dogs are not allowed in the store, mainly because of safety issues for customers as well as employees. Basically, we don't want them knocking something over or getting in the way of a forklift. But our management lacks some backbone, so they let that sort of thing go. This guy comes back to me after walking in 5 minutes earlier and asks me for a plastic bag. After a quick question, I find out his dog took a crap on the floor. I said, sure, and handed him the bag. As I do that, he looks at me and says, well, I'm not picking it up. It's not my store. After stating that I was going to get management involved if he didn't, and showing him the no pet policy, he still was putting up a fight. Fast forward a couple minutes, and he is screaming at our manager about the no pet policy. A couple minutes after that, police show up. After a short exchange, he is cited with a fine for refusing to pick up after his own dog, as well as not following the no pet policy after it was explained. When the police officer asked me to hand him a bag, I found one that had a couple somewhat sizable holes in it. To my delight, he snatched the bag away from me without looking at it. He ended up walking out of the store asking for paper towels to wipe his hands with, to which my manager told him that this isn't his store. Story 75. I worked the customer service booth, and I had a lady try to return potato chips that had expired and tasted bad. She said they shouldn't have tasted badly since she kept them frozen in the freezer and they should not have gone bad. Story 76. I was a cook at a restaurant. I'm just working my station like every other night, and this ticket comes up. Pasta, steak, well done, club sandwich. Nothing out of the ordinary. Then the server comes up. Hey, there are 15. The guy at table X wants his steak extra well done. All right, sure. Throw the steak on, check the temp and the squishiness. Everything seems in order. Order up. 5 minutes later, the steak comes back. Hey, there are 15. He says it's not well done enough. Take a look at the steak where he cut into it. It's brown all the way through. Shrug it off. 5 more minutes on the grill. Cut it open on another part of the steak, ensuring that it is brown all the way through and all flavor has escaped this ruined piece of meat. Order up. Comes back right away. He still says it's not well done enough. All right, mother ducker. Into the deep fryer it goes. 10 minutes in the deep fryer. Pat it down with some paper towel. Order up. Server comes back. Hey there, at 15, he said it was the best steak he ever had. What? Story 77. I worked at a famous zoo for many years. I worked with guest relations for quite a few years and heard plenty of crazy complaints. But the best I heard happened just about a year before I transferred to that department, and is not unbelievable compared to the other things I have heard working there. Basically, every now and then, during summer, the zoo would have animatronic dinosaurs, for kids to come and see. They had done this for years and years off and on, and honestly, it was pretty well done animatronics. Nothing I would pay to see as an adult really, but really fun for kids. Anyway, apparently during one of the last summers I know that they had this event, there was a lady from England who came to the guest relations windows furious and demanding a refund. As policy, they try to treat any complaint respectfully and politely, asking what the reason for the refund would be. They are much easier to give a return ticket than a flat refund. Well, the lady didn't just want her ticket refunded. She wanted her entire trip from England to America refunded as well. Her complaint. She came to see the dinosaurs, and they weren't real. This is only made more amazing that I heard a Japanese family had the same complaint around this time. Of all the insanity I dealt with there, that may have been the dumbest complaint I ever heard about. Needless to say, they didn't refund her trip to America, probably refunded her admission though, was about 10 years ago, so that specific slips my mind now. What is the strangest customer complaint you've ever heard? Years ago, I worked on the night crew of an all-night supermarket. Most of the nights, I ran the one register that would be open in the wee hours. In the state I was working, no business could sell alcohol after 2 a.m. That law included all-night supermarkets like ours, but it happened continuously that after the bars closed, people would come in and see liquor in the store, and then the supermarket was open, after all, demand to buy it. I didn't myself think it an urgent matter that the state prevent someone from buying liquor after 2 a.m. But the rules were the rules as far as my job was concerned. So there we were. What a drag. Angry, drunk people night after night, every single shift. I started telling people as they entered the store that, hey, how are you? As we tell all our late night customers we don't sell alcohol after 2, that did nothing to solve the problem. That would just start all the drunk arguing a few minutes earlier. Nothing worked. It was just part of the job to deal with obnoxious, drunk people after 2. Another crappy liquor situation. It also happened that our supermarket chain, a major national chain and so therefore uptight about liquor sales, had a rule that if we saw a group of people exchanging money in line, we had to card the whole group. The store was serious about the rules, so cashiers, like me, had to take the rules seriously. As far as this rule went, I had sympathy for customers who wouldn't necessarily have understood that the store would have this rule, and who, for all I knew, might have been exchanging money because of debts owed for some math textbook, a Bible, or anger management classes. So, when some group of younger people joined a line and one of them had alcohol, I would make a point to tell them, asterisk before asterisk, they had exchanged any money, what the store rule was. Now, again, I get that this kind of rule might have caught people by surprise. And I understand that no one really likes hearing some cashier announcing a rule intended to foil their plans for underage drinking. And I also understand that not everyone is dazzlingly quick-witted. Still, you would think that, occasionally, a group of customers would figure out that perhaps the reason I was telling them this rule was so that none of us would be in a position in which I had to enforce it. Why would I tell them the rule when they were far back in line and when no one had yet exchanged any money? After all, if what I wanted to do was just refuse their liquor purchases. If I wanted to do that, I could just wait until they exchanged the money, or better yet, wait until they had come all the way through the line and then just tell them no then, right? What did I care if they happened to remember? At that moment, to go back and get some cookies or something, away from the register, and conclude or not conclude whatever transactions their mutual business required for whatever reason. But no, in 2 years of running that damn register, I had maybe 2 or 3 people who seemed to grasp anything close to the above point in time not to screw things up. Instead, overwhelmingly, people would decide that it was none of my business why they were exchanging money. They would exchange money right there anyway, tell me they're non-liquor related, reasons for doing this right before a liquor purchase, and then, confident that they had outsmarted me, or confident that they had put me in my place for daring to question them, demand I ring them up anyway. In other words, their theory was that the reason I was up there wearing some company shirt and running a register at midnight is because a national supermarket chain wanted me to invent policies regarding liquor sales on the fly. And then I could, of course, adjust those policies based on customer interviews on the spot, especially when the plucky customer stood up to me. So, I'd have to say no to the sale. And you would think this wouldn't have been that surprising, given that I had just told them I wouldn't be able to complete the sale if they did the very thing that they went ahead and did anyway. But outrage would ensue. The manager would often have to come up, and they would still not get their booze. Good times. Story 2. We had a customer try to get me fired because I wouldn't provide him an installer and a software key for a software version we no longer supported. All he had was an old box, because I knew for a fact it wouldn't work in his situation anyway. It wouldn't work with either his OS or his hardware. It was so old that the whole software line had been discontinued for years, and this wasn't even the version we had discontinued then. It was one we discontinued and replaced with a major update years before that. I explained repeatedly that we didn't even have a way to generate keys for that anymore, and it simply would not do what he was wanting. It wasn't a policy. We could do whatever to make customers happy, but it was completely pointless. It wouldn't work with what he had, and there was no way to make it work. I knew the software had essentially no utility in any modern scenario. We had ended support because the software basically had no modern use at all. Keep in mind this product was less than $30 new, and that was a long time ago, before dollar apps and tons of inexpensive software anywhere. He also said that he had bought the product secondhand and never even had a key to begin with. He just had an old box, not even a disc. He screamed at me, called back and got someone else, and lied about what I'd said I'd sworn at him and abused him, called me every bad name in the book, and basically demanded that I be fired. He gets the software, etc. Or he'd sue us and defame us online. It finally got to the company owner, whose office is in earshot of mine, so he knows damn well I don't abuse customers. The company owner is also head developer, so he agreed to go back and generate a serial number for the guy and send him an old installer. As he was doing this, he repeatedly explained that it wouldn't work on his system, but we were doing this to appease him. And the whole time, the guy is going, "It's about the principle. I paid for it. I want it. I demand I have it," etc. The guy held him on the line without explanation, then started to freak out because, as we had promised, it didn't work. The owner said, That's what I told you would happen. The guy demanded to know how the company compensate him for this huge injustice and waste of his personal time, etc. Demanded that we make it work no matter the cost, just for him, and the owner said, "You got exactly what you asked for. A product that we told you from the first time you spoke to my name wouldn't work for you anymore. It is too old to work on your new system, but we spent our time getting it to you anyway because you insisted you have it. Now you do. That's all we're doing. Goodbye." Story 3. While working at Advance Auto, I had a customer come in demanding a set of brake pads. I asked what he drove. He replied, "Doesn't matter. Brake pads are brake pads." I said they are vehicle specific. I was then asked if I was retarded and told to stop trying to rip him off. Being the helpful human I am, I obliged his request. Walked down the aisle containing hundreds of different brake pads, particular to your vehicle, selected a random box, sold random pads to customer. 2 hours later, he attempts to return them stating they don't fit. I refuse the return stating, "I cannot return used items. They were covered in oil, and what have you. Idiots." Story 4. I had a rather stupid one on Tuesday, so here we go. I valet for a bar, restaurant. One of my 3 jobs, mind you. I don't even mind it. That's by choice. Anyway, my job is basically to run from outside the restaurant, around a corner to behind out restaurant where I put the cars. Simple enough. And I run because I don't think people take kindly to you meandering to their car when they're in a rush, obviously, right? Well, the corner I run around has outside seating for another restaurant that I don't work for or park for or anything. This last Tuesday was rather busy. I had a lot of people from the UK doing business, and they chose to eat at where I work. Great, it's busy, I like getting good tips, it all works out. Once it slows down, 3 ladies walk by me. They had been seated outside kind of near where I run. The one lady goes, "Are you guys busy tonight?" "Yes, it's been very busy." "Oh, well, you come around that corner awfully fast." Interrupting here is aka Michelle, her friend. "Yeah, that's incredibly rude." Now mind you, I'm not running over people, I am on the sidewalk, a public sidewalk. "Well, I'm sorry, ma'am, No! That's just rude. Or UD! Michelle, this isn't how you handle. No, I spent a lot of money tonight. It's ridiculous. Keep in mind that these ladies could have sat at several tables outside or simply said something to me hours ago, but didn't. They would rather confront me working outside my restaurant. And we noticed cops going around checking for cars being broken into. We didn't like that. We've had several break-ins to customers' cars, so the cops have been keeping an eye out, which I appreciate very much. "Well, I'm sorry, ma'am. I don't control that. That's their job. And mine is to retrieve these cars." "Yeah, well, we were thinking you walk part of the way. You don't need to run. Or just run in the road," Michelle states. Obviously, running around a blind corner into the road isn't smart, but anyway. Michelle continues to go, "It's just plain rude." They walk away. Quite a bit more stupidity came out of their mouths that I don't even care to type, but it was like some sort of joke. The whole thing was a bit ridiculous. No one has had such an absurd complaint before. Again, I work 3 jobs, 2 of them involve running, and I have a fuse back on top of that. I'm simply attempting to pay off my student loans, finish college, and leave where I am currently living. And this lady complains because I was running on the sidewalk. Pay too much for her meal, and because apparently the cops trying to protect people's vehicles is unacceptable. Story 5. Not really a customer complaint, but weird story. I was 18 and working at a 711. I was working the overnight shift at the time. Recently, the store managers had been harping on making sure that all the sales associates, way over inflated job titled, make eye contact and greet all of the customers entering the store to make them feel welcome. So cut to my shift, it's about 1 a.m., and I'm in the back of the store washing coffee pots, and I hear the door chime. I walk out and notice a short, burly, thuggish man standing at the magazine rack reading one of them. His appearance didn't faze me in the least because I know looks can be deceiving. As I had green hair and facial piercings at the time, and I'm a nice enough fellow, as I was told to do, I walk up to counter and say very cordially, "Hello." Now comes the weird part. The man throws down the magazine and walks up to the counter and yells, "You think I'm going to steal your magazines? How dare you accuse me of stealing? You see this?" Points to teardrop tattoo under his eye. "This means I hit a man and he pass. If I'm going to take something, it's not going to be no damn magazine. I'll take the money in the register and then I'll take your life. I'll hit you and then I'll take your stupid magazine." And then the man storms out. What the heck? So I go and explain to the other person who was working with me what happened. She said she heard the whole thing from the manager's office and saw it on the cameras and already called the cops with a description of the man. Thanks for sitting this one out, lady. A bit shaken but not broken, I continue the shift. Half hour later, the man is walking back to the store. Bricks are shat. I'm going to die in a stupid bright red smock. He walks into the store looking very somber. He bursts into tears. Can't stop apologizing. Explains that he just got out of prison and adjusting to real life has been tough. I tell him no worries, let's forget the whole thing. He asks for me to give him a hug. I reluctantly do, considering the consequences of not hugging this emotionally unstable ex-con. Weirdest night ever. Story 6. I've got a twofer since I couldn't decide which was worse. Worked at a gas station for a while. Guy comes in to buy a lottery ticket. Not the scratch-off, but the multi-million state lottery. The system has been down all day, and the white trash is in an uproar. I lived in an area of the South where the only things to really do were meth, drinking, and gambling away the grocery money. Most were being gits about it, but fairly harmless. And then came the king of the trailer park with a mullet so fierce. He went ballistic. He proceeded to cuss me, the store, my mother, my grandmother, and the state government. He spent the next few minutes yelling about how I was not allowed to advertise for the lottery if I wasn't selling tickets, and that it was illegal not to sell them to him. When it was clear he wasn't going to stop, I told him to leave. He refused and said something about his constitutional right. I had to call the cops. He even waited, convinced I would be arrested. Next story. The gas station I worked at also had diesel pumps for truckers. We were too small to be a truck stop, but we were close to a lot of places that shipped out, so they would stop when they were heading out or coming in. Sorry to any nice and friendly truckers out there. But by and large, you're a bunch of a-holes. There was a certain trucker card that could be used that was a completely pain in the ass. It would take a 30-minute phone call to get it approved because it doesn't work with the debit credit machine. Maybe 3 trucker that came through once every few weeks used it. One thing that could be done with it is that they could get a cash advance with it. Unfortunately, one chose a night that was incredibly slow, and it was 2 a.m. He wanted $250. My till had maybe $200 in it, and I needed that to make change. I couldn't give him anything, and he became completely belligerent, yelling at me, trying to rile up other truckers that came in, etc. Normally, we are a prepay store, but we let truckers fill up first because logos make them easy to find. He had over 500 in diesel, so I had to put up with it while I made that phone call. I had to finally tell him to wait in his truck until I was done. Story 7. When I worked at Walmart as a cart pusher back in the day, I once had some duckwit accuse me of keying their car. Now, for some history, I had walked by these gits on the way to grab more carts. It's about 7 p.m. on New Year's Eve, and as you might suspect, I hate life right about now. So I nod to the kids, grab my carts, and put them away. They were the last ones on the lot, so I go inside to grab a drink and not be outside anymore. Well, douches come up and accuse me of keying their car, because I nodded at them. And I'm obviously the only one who would have beef with these fine people. Needless to say, I told him he was full of crap and to step off before something bad happened to him. My manager was behind me and whispered in my ear, "You can't do anything. They're customers. Just let it go." So I said, "Fine. They aren't worth it anyways," and walked off. Well, Git wasn't budging. So he grabbed my shoulder, spun me around, and took the glasses right off my face, snapped them, and threw them away. The manager had a hand on my arm that I considered shaking off before feeding this a hole his teeth. When the waste of life walked off, smirking with his duck-off friends, I then got detained by the other employees of Walmart. Damn people, you all make me sick. Story 8. I was holidaying in Kenya in the late 90s and saw a middle-aged couple complaining loudly about something to the hotel rep. Suddenly, the rep just burst out laughing. The couple were complaining that they had been incredibly disappointed by their safari and were demanding a refund. They had come all this way, spent all this money, and they hadn't seen a single tiger. Just to point out that Kenya is in Africa. Tigers come from Asia. Story 9. After I launched our new website at work, one of our clients emailed me to complain that you couldn't use the website if you didn't have internet access. First, I'm pretty sure everything on the internet doesn't work without the internet. Also, what did he want me to do about it? Print all 900 pages and leave it on his front porch like the damn phone book? And if he doesn't have internet access, how did he email me? Story 10. I had some hole try to fight me over the amount of time I was taking to process a different customer's coupons. This guy was a customer or two back. The lady I was helping had a few coupons, admittedly 5 too many, but still have to check to see if she actually had the items. So I'm going through her stuff, making sure everything she has is on the coupons and vice versa, and this a-hole starts talking. Can we hurry it up here? I'm ignoring him because that's what you do. You can't let some a-hole get to you. Hey buddy, there are other people in line. Mind hurrying it up a bit? I turn to him and say, I'll get to you. I'm helping this woman out now. No reason to get upset. So eventually this guy gets to the register and he's still pissed. I'm just trying to ignore all the crap that he's talking. What, you just don't care about customers? What's the big deal here? Do you really not care? Sir, look, I was helping that woman and she had a lot of coupons. This guy starts swearing at me, more of the "you don't care" bullcrap. Eventually, he finally gets all his crap and pays. As he's walking away, I admit that I shouldn't have done this, but I mutter, "damn a hole," under my breath, because everybody who has ever worked retail has done this. I call the manager over and she calms the situation down. Guy leaves. I go about my day. Story 11. SeaWorld again. For the Seal Lion and Otter show, we have handicapped ramps located on the left and right sides of the stadium. No strollers are allowed in the stadiums and guests are asked to park them in certain areas. If your baby is sleeping, then we allow the parent to use the handicapped section until more handicapped guests arrived. We ask this woman to use one of the ramps. She declined and took her stroller into the stadium. Seeing as how a car drives through the stadium during the show, my job was to make sure that area would be clear. I walked up to the woman, asked her politely, "Excuse me, a car will be driving through this part of the show and we need to have this area clear. Could you please take your stroller out of the stadium? My baby is sleeping," she barked, a common reply from those too lazy to park their strollers. "Well, we allow sleeping babies to use the handicapped sections." She cut me off. I'm not putting my baby next to retarded people to catch retarded diseases to end up retarded. Not expecting such a stupid answer, I was stunned. I ended up saying, "That's fine, I'll call security and they will move it for you." She moved the stroller. Story 12. At KFC, I used to be very generous with the chips, filling them right to the top so that chips were practically falling out. One day, this guy took the large box of chips I gave, balled his hand up into a fist, and started shoving the chips down into a little salty cube of mashed potato at the bottom of the box. Finally, after much huffing and puffing, he pulled his greasy hand out of the box, smugly handed it back and said, "You didn't fill this up enough." Story 13. When I used to work at PacSun, we had the dressing rooms in the back and you needed a key to get in there. It was around the holidays, so obviously, very busy. A woman with her boyfriend and kids that have been in the store for 20 minutes decide they want to try the clothes on. There was only me and my sales rep working at the time and I was ringing out customers. Next thing I know, I hear whistling coming from the back to get my attention. So naturally, I turn back, slightly irritated that someone is whistling to get my attention. The girl decides to do that damn knee-bent pose, hand on the hip and snapping at me. Boy, open the dressing room now." I told her as calmly as I could that she needed to wait a minute. I was with a customer finishing up a sale. The girl freaks the duck out, demanding that I open the door, and then, get this, watch her kids while she is in the dressing room along with the boyfriend trying on clothes. I calmly lost my mind, walked over, grabbed the clothes from her hands, grabbed his clothes, and told them quietly, "If you don't walk out of my store right now, I'm calling security. I am not your boy or a damn dog. Get out now." Idiot told me to get my manager. "Woman, I am the manager. Now get out of my store." They cowered down and left, but not before they knocked over our whole stack of clothes in the front. Story 14. I replaced a window in a lady's filthy house. After I was done and was almost ready to drive off, she yells over the balcony if I'm going to put a new window in for her. I thought she was kidding. She was not. I went back in with her, tapped on the new clean glass. She went silent as I looked at the dirty black and brown stained windows around. The only clean and clear window was the new one I just put in. Story 15. I work for a large food manufacturer that makes all sorts of items. One item we make is a sugar-free fruit pie. The secret to sugar-free is that we use this artificial sweetener. As long as you have a reasonable portion, you're fine. However, if you eat too much of this particular sweetener, it can have a laxative effect. We once had woman call in and demand that we replace the carpet in her house because she had an accident that ruined the carpet from her living room all the way down the hall and into the bathroom. Story 16. Asterisk, asterisk background. Asterisk, asterisk. One of the businesses that I own is a bakery. I love it and have built up a pretty awesome reputation for myself and handle large parties, events, and have a posted $150 minimum per order. I have catered for the Academy Awards before and have a solid customer base. Stupid complaint. Situation. Customer. "Hey, is this Ravetti's Bakery?" "Yeah. I wanted to place an order for a birthday party and need 2 dozen chocolate cupcakes next Saturday." Me. "I am sorry. I normally have a $150 minimum and request at least 2 weeks' notice. But since you're requesting chocolate and I am doing a large order for that Saturday in chocolate, then I am happy to get you what you need." Customer. "Okay, thanks. What is the price on those?" "I'm right down the street. Can you deliver?" Me. $36 plus tax. You're not too far away, but I can deliver to you free of charge." Customer. "That is a ridiculous price. I am not paying that. I can get cupcakes at the grocery store for cheaper." Me. "I am sorry. If you change your mind, be sure to let me know. Hope your friend has an awesome birthday no matter what." Customer. "Well, the bakery down the street charges less." Me. "Okay, that is fine. Enjoy your night." On my Yelp review for a customer that never was an actual customer, I didn't end up using them because they were priced higher than Vons down the street. I seriously complained to Yelp, who then removed the review. Story 17. Working at Panera Bread, slow period after breakfast but before lunch. Guy comes in and asks if we have any Pepsi, and I politely tell him we stock Coke products. Could have been the other way around, I don't remember. He paces a few times and then suddenly loses his crap and starts demanding to see my manager. Horrified, I got my manager and hid in the back. 15 minutes later, he storms out of the store shouting how he's going to sue the place. My manager and I tried to puzzle out what his deal was. Apparently, the store hosted a speed dating event the previous evening and it didn't go so well for him. And that's somehow our fault. Yeah, that was a strange day. Story 18. Oh, this brings back memories. I was 15 when I got my first job at a big-name frozen yogurt Frogurt shop. On my first day, I trained for a couple of hours, and then my manager let me take on a customer by myself. Being my chipper high school self, I greeted the customer, huge woman, with a big smile and friendly voice. Friends of mine will know that this is hard for me. She asked for strawberries and mochi on her yogurt and demanded that I count the strawberry pieces because she thought I wasn't giving her enough. I stared at her and said, we don't do that. I assure you I gave you the right amount. She adjusts her belly fat and huffed. Not sure if I'm making this part up, but this is how I remember it, and screamed in my face, count the strawberry pieces, and this went on for a few minutes until I damn snapped and said some words that I shouldn't have. My manager was right, and I was fired on the spot. On my first day, I want to know how people who deal with a hole customers can keep their cool day after day. Story 19. When I worked at a movie store, this DVD came back with perfectly circular, deep as crap scratches, which means your DVD machine is damn broken. Perfect scratches like that are equipment malfunctions. It's a write-off, not even repairable, so we mark it as a write-off, and the computer charges the last customer who borrowed it, assuming that if it was ducked when you got it and played it, that you'd say something and want a damn refund. She comes storming in with her 3 kids 2 weeks later when the collection agency calls wanting to know where their $27 for a replacement of Juno is. She huffs and screams and rants at me. She says it worked fine, and she returned it in perfect condition. I show her the DVD, marked with a unique barcode, the DVD case, matching code, and the DVD history in the computer system, which, has only been rented once, to her account. I even show her the DVD with its perfect, broken DVD ring of scratches. And she has the audacity to say to me that maybe I did it. Goes all CSI and says I have access to the DVDs after they're returned, and she knows it was in perfect condition when she dropped it in the slot, and the only solution is that I took a pair of scissors to it. I referred her to our district manager who laughed the git off the premises. Story 20. I worked at an Italian restaurant as a waitress for a short time as the customers sucked. This lady, in her 40s, ordered a Hawaiian pizza and pitched a fit saying how we got her order wrong. I asked her what was wrong with it, and she said it wasn't a Hawaiian pizza and the toppings were wrong. I looked at it and it had diced tomatoes, pineapples, and ham, exactly what the menu stated. Showing her this, she said, "What are you talking about? These are yellow. Pineapples are orange." Confused, I got my manager and he tried explaining that pineapples are quite yellow, not orange. But if she didn't like it, she can order something else on the house. She got mad and said no, that she wanted this, but with the right pineapples. She started explaining what they looked like. I said, "Wait, do you mean oranges?" As she completely described oranges, she said no, pineapples, and started describing oranges again. At this point, I take my phone out, Google oranges and pineapples, and show her. Hey, she points at the oranges and yells at the top of her lungs, "Yes, those I want those." My manager told her we do not have those, and she can either pick something else or eat what she has. She left. Story 21. My first job was at a Jack in the Box. People would order their food, take it back to their table, eat it, then bring it back to me with 1 bite left saying we messed up their order. My first manager was always like, "Well, it looks like we did a great job regardless. Have a nice day." He retired about a year into my employ. Our new manager was some spineless panty waist who was like, "Oh, I am so sorry. I know there are 300 people in line and we're in the middle of a rush, but let me stop everything so we can make your jumbo jack without mayo. Again, I am so sorry. I will definitely write up my cashier and my grill guys. Please have this one on us." I asked him one day if he realized he was being played as it happened with the same type of people almost every day. It was always students from the college who pulled this crap. He fired me for performance-related issues. After getting fired, I pulled this crap all the time with him. He was still spineless and never refused. Oh, and before I get slammed for getting another cashier and grill guy in trouble, he never wrote up anyone. Never. In fact, when he fired me, he made the assistant manager do it because he said he did not like confrontation. Story 22. Back when I worked at Jamba Juice, we were once understaffed by 2 call-outs with a line out the door in the middle of summer, while the ideal time to get drinks out was 3 minutes under the circumstances. Some of the waits were closer to 15. Most of our customers were actually quite understanding. One lady in particular decided to be especially irate and kept being aggressive towards us. By the time that she got her drink, my coworker saw her take off the lid and intentionally flip the cup completely over onto the table. Her son politely comes over and says that they have a spill and requests some towels. Not knowing what she had done, I say, "Okay, I'll be right there to clean it up." Immediately after, she comes up and starts yelling at him, "Where are the towels?" I calmly tell her that I will be right there to clean it up after I cleared up some orders. What does she say to me? "I want those towels now. That drink is about to leak on all the new clothes I just bought." One of the great things I learned at that job was how to remain composed under pressure, because in my head, all I could think was, "Well, lady, stop being a git and move your damn bags." Story 23. I have a few good stories, But I think the one that takes the cake was this old lady who claimed that there was a hole in a bag of dog food and that she should get a discount for it. She would come in all the time making this accusations apparently, but today the cashier wasn't having it. He looked at the bag for a while and didn't find any hole. The old lady then had someone from the office come up to find the hole, but they didn't see anything either, and they couldn't give her a discount. Then she snapped. She took the bag, ripped a giant hole in it, and spilled the bag onto the belt. "Now there's a hole," she said, and took her cart full of groceries and left the store without paying. One of the office people ran after her with 911 on the phone since she was, after all, shoplifting an entire cart of groceries. We couldn't lay a hand on her, but she got her car loaded up and pulled away, only to be subsequently pulled over one street over. She was arrested and banned from the store. Story 24. Worked at Home Depot as a cashier. I had a guy come up in line with a flat cart loaded down with merchandise. Everything from electrical to plumbing. It looked like he was remodeling part of his house. I start to ring him up and he stops me saying he forgot a few things, and before I can say anything, he disappears back into the store. No worries. I have the manager void out his order and start ringing up the next customers in line. We were swamped at the time, and I didn't want to leave everyone in line standing around waiting for the guy. So he reappears about 10 minutes later as I'm ringing up a customer with maybe 5 or 6 items. I see him come up and explain I'll ring him up next when I'm done. He loses his crap, starts screaming and cussing at me about how it was his turn, how the other guy should have to wait, etc. After about 2 minutes of screaming, he storms out of the store and leaves everything on the flat cart behind. All I could think was that he probably really needed that stuff and was going to have to come back or go to Lowe's and redo the whole thing instead of waiting for 2 minutes. Story 25. A woman was very upset that I wouldn't accept food stamps as payment for her family portraits. Not cash benefits, straight up food stamps. Ma'am, were you planning to eat the photos? Story 26. I work at a grocery store in a plaza with other little shops. At the side of our building are some steps with a railing that lead up to the other shops in the plaza on a particularly hot summer day. I was collecting carts, and an elderly woman came up to me complaining that the railing was too hot to the touch. She further explained that because the railing happened to be painted black, it absorbed more heat and made it impossible for her to hold on to, and that if she happened to fall as a result of not having its support, that she would sue the store. Not knowing what else to say to that, I took her side and pretended to be equally outraged that some get made the decision to paint the railing black, of all colors, and not a lighter, less absorbent color. Told her that she and I together would make a stand and call the real estate agency in charge. Got the number from my manager and gave it to her. If I one day see the railing painted pink, I'll know that she won. Story 27. This made me think of this bat crap, crazy woman. Said woman comes into my job to fill out an application. I worked at a spa and we always had satellite instrumental nature music playing. As she is filling out her form in the front retail area, she asks me if I can turn down the music. The music is nowhere near loud. I tell her that I'm not sure if we can, but I'll check and see what I can do. I go in the back and explain the situation to my boss and find out that we only have volume S for each small individual massage rooms in the back. I report back to her, informing her that we have no control over the music. She says fine and continues filling out the form, not without asking at least 5 more times if I'm sure I can't turn the music down. She even requests to talk to the owner, my boss, and hears the same thing. Fast forward, she gets an interview, and while mid-interview tour, she storms out mumbling about how she's not going to be comfortable working with our loud music. Story 28. I work at a dine-in theater that has certain theaters that are 21 plus only. We have reserved seating so guests can reserve their tickets ahead of time online. So, sometimes people come in with their kid. I print their tickets off, and I see they are in the 21 only theater. So I have to tell them I can't let them in and I can either refund them or switch them to a movie in the theaters without the same age restriction. 75% of the time they stare at me like I'm dumb and say, well, it never said that online. Can't you just let us in? We drove X amount of time to get here. How are we supposed to know? Yes, it damn does. I've even checked myself. Just because you failed to read the rules doesn't mean I can make an exception for you. But I can't say that. I just look at them, say, sorry for the inconvenience. And if they get enough, I call a manager over and they give them free passes. Ugh, it's just a movie, people. Story 29. While working in customer support for a program a few years back, I got a complaint from the customer saying that my response was too prompt, and they hadn't had a chance to discuss it with their own team yet. I got chewed out for being good at my job. Story 30. At a large shoe store the other day, I overheard an old lady asking an associate if they had a particular slipper in the non-clearance area. The old lady had found slippers she liked on clearance, but couldn't find anything like them that weren't discounted. The associate was genuinely confused and asked if she was trying to use a coupon or something. The old lady got indignant and proclaimed, I don't use coupons, and I don't buy things on clearance.